Hi there, really good to see you here, and we're enjoying the beginnings of 2019. And I thought, what better way to do that than to look back over my top 5 choices for locomotives that I did a box opening and review on during 2018. Now, there was an awful lot to pick from, and it was quite a tough choice, but I'm going to show you my top 5 now and see if you agree with me. I'd love to hear from you as well, what your top 5s are, so don't forget to put your top 5 down in the comments down below. But let's get on with it. Let's have a look at what I thought was the best of 2018. Well, this year we've had an awful lot of good releases, and it stands to reason that my choices were from quite a large pool, but I narrowed it down, and I suppose that some of these choices represent in some way my personal preferences, as would anybody's collection. And in my collection I have personal preference for small shunting locomotives. So in my number 5 spot, I've decided that the Halogen Class 5, it crept in here just into the year. I did a box opening and review on this back in January last year. So I think it may even have been the first of the year. And you would have thought that actually being the first of the year, I'd forgotten it by now with so many good things afterwards. But this locomotive has actually become the benchmark by which I test the smoothness of mechanisms against. Really, this was silky smooth out of the box, and it's an interesting prototype. It's not one that would have necessarily attracted me, but I had a chance to pick this up second hand from a shop. It was in as new condition. And it caught my eye. It was at a price that was really quite favourable. It's not even the livery that I would have gone for. In all honesty, if there was a Class 5 shunter that I would have really queued up to buy from new, it would have been if they'd have introduced the Isle of Wight shunter in the BR Blue with the tops number 05001. But I do know that that had a cut-down cab, so it's highly unlikely that Halogen would have tooled up for effectively what was a single prototype. I don't think I'm going to see that. But it's interesting that some of the points on this that really made it stand out for me, aside from that silky smooth mechanism, is this cab glazing. And again, another thing that really set the bar high. The glazing on this is, it's beyond flush. It is, it's perfect. And with this particular model, I think one of their nicknames was greenhouses because of this expansive glass to give very good all-round visibility. So you can see we've got the windows at the back, and then we've also got the big windows at the side. And these very, very uniquely and strange shaped windows at the front. It's very futuristic, 1950s style. And, the flushness of that glazing, I think we did have a debate at the time how Halogen had done those. And it's possibly the case that the entire cab is made of the glazing material that is then tampo printed over the top to give this effect. But certainly this, for me, was an amazing model, and it still remains one of my favourite models of all time, really, because of that silky smooth mechanism. And I actually use this to check point work so I can get a benchmark by which I can gauge any of the newer models. So this is fair and square in the top 5. I've put it as number 5, but certainly a lot of these are very close together in my opinion. The quality of the models we've been getting has been exceptional. Well, number 4, I had a good think about this. I'm actually quite stuck for deciding, but I've decided that the locomotive that I'm going to go for in my number 4 slot is going to be the Depol B4 dock shunter. And this, for me, was another excellent model. It's got a tremendous weight to it, and we reviewed this probably later on in the year. Probably, I think it was around September time, something like that. And it's got a very short wheelbase, very long overall length. It's an interesting little locomotive, made famous by the surviving one at the Bluebell Railway, which has been a staple of their fleet, I think, really right back to when the Bluebell Railway was initially set up. But it's got tons and tons of character. But what really sold me on this model when I actually bought it was the London and South Western Railway pea green livery that you see this example in. It was the Collectors Club exclusive for the Depol Collectors Club, and for me it was the deal breaker. I thought, yeah, I'm going to join. That locomotive is just so good. I believe that they still have a few left to get, so if you really want one of these, it's still possible to get one if you join the Depol Collectors Club. Certainly worth giving them a ring and seeing if these are still available. And they did do, for general release, a London and South Western Railway brown liveried one, as I think it's Kane. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, C-A-E-N, and that's in the livery that the London and South Western Railway painted the locomotives that worked within the Southampton docks, I believe. And that is on general release, so a lot easier to get hold of. But this beautiful pea green really just was an eye-catcher for me. The locomotive itself, very finely detailed, a lot of separately applied factory-fitted detail, and it really is superb in every way. So more than happy to add this to my top 5 for the year. It is actually the only locomotive that I've got in here from Depol, but Depol doesn't do an awful lot of 00 locomotives, so it's really pleasing to see that when they do a 00 locomotive, they do not skimp on the details. So I was more than happy to put this in at number 4. Now we're getting down to quite a tough choice. There's a few locomotives that really stood out for me over the course of the year, and well, to decide between these is quite tricky. So this one you may remember from being quite a recent review that I did, but it's actually quite hard to fit this on screen all in one go. But this is La France. This is the London and Brighton and South Coast Railway H1 Atlantic. I did goof a little bit in the box opening and review, getting the H1 and the H2 confused with each other, and I was picked up on that, and it was a bit embarrassing to look back and go, yeah, why did I say that? But certainly, to go back to the model itself is perfect. I have had it test run now since the review. I know at the time of the review I wasn't able to test run anything, but I have test run it since, and it is a beautiful silky smooth model, as you would expect from Bachmann. But unusually in this top 5 for the year 2018, it's the only Bachmann model that I've seen fit to pick. Now, I did buy and review quite a few Bachmann models over the course of the year, and it's not to detract from any of the quality of the models that Bachmann were producing. But you know, this was certainly head and shoulders above the rest for me, with my own personal interests from Bachmann. And the model itself, an awful lot of fine finesse detail. The livery application is absolutely perfect, and for me, things like the crest on the splasher there was just so nicely done, and I'm actually looking forward to being able to DCC sound fit this at some point. I did try and fit it with a TTS. I think I tried the S15 sound chip in this initially, and the problem I had was that there's just so small a space inside the tender that I really had to rethink. And I think if I can get hold of some very, very small sugar cube type speakers, I might stand a much better chance. But I had to bail out of that sound fit and opted instead for the Hornby Schools class. But certainly this is on my hit list for sound fitting. I've got coaches to accompany this quite nicely, again from the Bachmann stable, the South Eastern and Chatham Railway coaches that they brought out a while back, and I'm looking forward to being able to run them as a train. Now, I know that the SECR coaches and an LBSC locomotive might not be an ideal partnership, but certainly they look good together. And after the grouping period, immediately after grouping, it's plausible, I suppose, that these locomotives could have travelled a little bit further. Certainly the coaches could have travelled a little bit further. So there's every possibility that the pair may have run together. But rule one, my railway, I do what I like, and screw with a lot of yous. For me, they really are an ideal pairing. So more than happy to put this into my top 5 list at number 3. Now, the number 2 spot, again, we're going back to my personal preference for small shunting locomotives. And, maybe it's just me. I know some people who, as you'll have seen on the video when we interviewed Brian through the railway room door, he was very much a person in favour of the DMUs. And I think his top 5 would be radically different from mine. But certainly for the number 2 spot, I decided on this. It's the Andrew Barclay shunter that came from Hattons. Now, it's we're all aware of Hattons. We're all very fond of Hattons, certainly from my point of view. And I was chatting actually with the Backman rep in Arcadia Models in Shaw a few weeks ago. We all have our memories through the ages of Hattons, and I was swapping mine with him. Certainly he'd grown up visiting Hattons in his childhood, and I'm no different, even though I didn't live anywhere near the Liverpool area. Certainly it's one that my father and I used to make a pilgrimage to the shop to see Norman Hatton and that wonderful Aladdin's Cave of bits and pieces. So, always remembered with fondness those day trips to Smithtown Road. But now they've branched out into being a manufacturer in their own right. And this was one of the models that they brought to the market. And certainly it's been the year of the industrial shunter. With models like this coming out, we've had more liveries of the Hornby Peckett. We've also had more liveries of the Hornby Sentinel. So it's been really, really good, and certainly 2019 looks set to bring us even more industrial locomotives. And this is perfect. It's almost like they're bringing these out, having listened to my pleas. I don't think they have. I don't think I'm that much of a trendsetter that manufacturers would go, "Oh, I wonder what Jenny thinks. She has some good points." But certainly with this, for me, everything about it was absolutely perfect. And actually, I have DCC fitted this, and I was worried it was going to be a very difficult proposition. But certainly, I know there were some worries that Hattons, at least initially when it came out, weren't doing their own brand chips to fit it. So people were worried that you couldn't actually DCC fit it for whatever reason. But that was fake news, as Trump would like to say. It was actually one of the easier DCC fittings of any models that I've done thus far, and a Gagemaster DCC 23 chip was a perfect fit into these. It took a few minutes to do it. Very easy, actually, to get the top off. It's a very tight fit. Not much space in there. I wouldn't like to try and sound fit one of these. I'm not even sure whether realistically it would be possible without some severely compromising of the integrity of the model itself. But certainly this model for me is brilliant in every way, not just the application to models for anybody modelling an industrial concern, but in terms of its reliability of running and the livery application and the finesse of the model. This for me was a stellar new entry in at number 2, and really a great offering from what is, actually a new manufacturer to the fray. And I also have their P-Class, and that is a great model. That could have been in this list as well. And I think certainly I plumped for the Austerity Grey SECR livery of that. If I'd have gone for the fully lined out SECR livery at some point during the year, I think that possibly would have made it into my top 5 with that livery application. And that is certainly still a locomotive on my hit list that I would like to pick up, and maybe I'll pick one up this year. But the manufacturers are making it really difficult. They're bringing out so many new things that I want. That money's got to spread thinly. So, Hattons, if you're listening, I would love one of your P-Class in the fully lined out SECR livery. I'm going to have to save up for that. But when it does come, certainly it will get the full box opening and review treatment. But this CPC United Kingdom liveried Barclay was perfect. It's like they'd listened to what I've been saying when I've been exhibiting Grove Street Yard, my model that is a homage to Trafford Park, and this very squarely was a Trafford Park resident right through into the 1970s. In fact, I think it may even have been one of the last, if not the last, steam locomotives at work anywhere in Trafford Park. So it was really, really welcome when it came out. The number one slot, well, what could I have picked? There's been so many great releases over the last year, but for me, it's a locomotive that I've looked at with great fondness for years, actually, since I first saw photographs of these. And when Halogen announced that they were bringing out the Class 7, I knew I had to have one, and when it turned up, I really wasn't disappointed by it. Now, we started off the year with that Halogen Class 5 and that silky smooth mechanism, and really the Class 7 did not disappoint in any way when it turned up. It's got all that fine detail that we've come to expect from Halogen. In fact, in some respects, Halogen really go above and beyond so much with the fine detail that some of this is quite fragile to handle. And I'm not looking forward to the day when I come to fit this with a DCC chip. I think getting this apart is going to be really difficult. And if that is a detraction from the Halogen models, the one thing I would say about them is opening them up is really quite, it's quite an ordeal, because there's so many fine detailed parts you have to deal with, and you really got to be careful where you hold on to these, because it's so easy to break some of this fine detail. But this locomotive, when it turned up, I am a sucker for BR Blue with tops numbers. So to have a whole new locomotive class that came out with tops numbers and to have these made available in model form, well, I'm sorry, I just had to have these. My example here, 07010, it's still actually quite widely available. I've seen it for sale an awful lot. There is another Class 7 in blue. I think it's something like 07005 or something like that. It's the one with, I believe it may be the one with the high-level southern air pipes. That sold out very quickly. I'm not quite sure. There's probably there's almost certainly a very good reason why it was the one that sold out and this one's still available. But certainly I was quite happy with 07010. It fit the bill for me perfectly. Now, these locomotives had a reasonably long life at Southampton docks. And then when they were made redundant, a lot of them passed on into further industrial use. So there's a lot of liveries available and things like British Industrial Sand, I think it is, the Oakmoor Quarry livery. And there's even been a Harry Needle Railroad Company liveried version available from Hatton's. So there's quite a bit of variety in these, and certainly I'm looking forward to seeing what further announcement from Halogen there are for other liveries. I think they have been announced, they are coming out, so I'm really looking forward to these. But for me, this was my number one model of the year of 2018, partially because it was so eagerly awaited. A lot of the other locomotives, they kind of turned up and turned my head when they arrived, but for this, it was eagerly awaited, and that could have introduced heartbreak if the model had not lived up to expectations when it did finally arrive. But certainly when it did arrive, I was not disappointed. So this, for me, was firmly in there at number one, my model of 2018, well, my personal model of ones that I bought. Certainly, if I'd have bought more models, and, you know, the only thing that stopped me there is money, and I think a lot of other people would sympathise with that. There's possibly other models that might have made it to number one. But, you know, with the restrictions in play, for me, I'm very, very happy to say that this, the Halogen Class 7 diesel shunter in BR Blue with the tops number 07010, was my personal model of the year 2018. Now, I know that this list may not be to everybody's tastes, and certainly I'm sure all of you have your own opinions of what would be your own personal top fives, and I'd love to hear from you. So leave your own personal top fives down in the comments below. It'd be really good to hear from you, and certainly I think it'd be something of interest to everybody who watches this to see how other people place their top models of 2018, and certainly I'm looking forward to seeing those. Well, a few surprises there, I think, and a few really obvious choices. There's certainly been a wealth of really good models in 2018. It was a good year. I'm looking forward to 2019 being equally as good, if not better. And actually, with everything that's been announced, it really does look like it's going to be a bumper bonus year for the collection. Not so good for the bank balance, but hey, you know, that's always the way with any hobby. Anyway, don't forget to like this video, share it too, and also subscribe to the channel and you'll be the first to know about new videos as and when they go up. But until next time, it's been really great to have you along. Thanks for watching, and you take really good care of yourself. I'll see you here next time. Bye for now. Today's video has been brought to you in part thanks to the generous donation of my fans on Patreon. And an extra special huge thanks go out to Anthony Kidson, Mark Anthony, Michael Churchwood, Mark McShane, Bob Threeton, Alec Ralph, and Anthony Hunt. If you'd like to help support the show, head on over to patreon.com/Jennifer Kirk. Thank you. Today's video has been brought to you by my books, Bringing Home the Stars, Twinkle Little Star, and also you can get the complete comic collections of All Over the House, Books 1, Books 2, and also the wacky zany Life of Knobty Mouse. Thanks, and catch you later.